Joining us now, Congressman Mark Green of Tennessee. By the way, happens to be an ER doctor, healthcare CEO. Congressman Andy Biggs, he is the chairman of the Freedom Caucus from Arizona. Welcome both of you back to the program. Congressman, I cannot go along with any monies that are going to be spent. No more, the Kennedy Center for the Arts, National Endowment for Humanities, and the Arts, $75 million each. This has to stop. This next thing that has to stop is Nancy Pelosi wants $1 trillion, to bail out irresponsible states that were running massive budget deficits? That can't happen either.
Right. Well, Sean, thanks for having us. Yeah, you're right. You've got states that have massive pension funds that they want to incorporate into this. They have deficits in their pension funds. You have New York with $6 billion in the hole in their state budget before this happened. And you've got Nancy Pelosi, who has been orchestrating all this. That's one of the reasons she doesn't want Congress back there, is because she can basically run this as an oligarchy instead of a republic. And so, yeah, you cannot allow Nancy Pelosi, we cannot, as members of Congress, allow her to run rampant here and bail out states who actually have basically emasculated their own economies and now their own state budgets, and then say, okay, we want everybody else in the country to pay us back for it.
I was a little intrigued all week as I've been watching Congressman Green. For example, I was a little dubious of some of the things that were going on in the great state of Georgia and Governor Kemp, and the jury's still out, but I was impressed how they were opening salons for people to get manicures and pedicures. Not something I do. Linda might do that. I don't do that. But in all seriousness, they create a barricade. Everybody's in a mask. They open up what would be like a teller handing you cash at a bank, just a little area where you can put your hands in there. And the manicurist has a mask on and gloves on, and then proceeds, to go through and do the salon thing. I was impressed with that. I've been impressed with some images that I've seen of social distancing, plexiglass restaurants opening. That seems like a possibility. You're an MD. Is that, in your view, can that be done, and can that be done safely?
Yeah, Sean, thanks for having me on, and absolutely. In fact, I just ran over to Georgia from Tennessee to pin my Ranger tab on my son, who just graduated Ranger School, and we ate dinner at a restaurant in Georgia. They had
Congratulations.
Thank you. Had all the masks on, and they had us at every other table, and it was spread out. We had a nice dinner. It absolutely can be done safely. And to echo what Andy was saying, Illinois has $137 billion of unfunded pension. And in the state of Tennessee, we are fully funded in our pension. We're not planning on Tennessee taxpayers covering Illinois' bad decisions. So thanks for bringing that up and being a voice on that issue.
Yeah, there's billions in New York, the same thing. And they're trying to balance their budgets off the backs of those states that have hired responsible governors and representatives that didn't tax them to death and didn't, abuse it. I'll give you an example in New York. They wasted $750 million on, if you can believe it, a solar panel factory in upstate New York that they closed. $600 million on a microchip factory they closed. $90 million on a light bulb factory partnership that they closed. And I don't want to hear it. $137 billion unpaid pensions. That's Illinois' problem. The debt, the deficits, the budget problems that they have in New York are massive. And that's why everyone's leaving New York. And I think you're going to see even a faster exodus as a result here. Andy Biggs, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely, Sean. I mean, first of all, what business was the state government in trying to get involved in private sector businesses all over the place? That doesn't even make sense to me. And it certainly is what leaves them in the lurch, because they believe that they've got an endless pot of money, that money's going to grow on trees, and it just doesn't. And that kind of irresponsibility shouldn't be shunted off on the government. They say, the federal government. The federal government is we the people. That's who it is. And so Tennessee's done well, Arizona's done well. Why should we be bailing you out for just horrendous decisions that you've made? And that we've got to stop that.
Well, I mean, now, I don't think you can stop it in the House, but certainly I think the pressure's got to go into the Senate, where Republicans have control. Congressman Mark Green.
Absolutely. I think the Senate is going to take the lead on standing up against this. You've heard comments both from, Mitch McConnell, Leader McConnell. He's basically saying we are not going to fund some pension liability that a state has run up. So it looks like they're standing their ground, and I think they will for sure.
Last question. I want to ask you, especially Congressman Green, you're working on the Secure Our Systems Against China tactics, incentivizing Americans to invest and purchase distressed companies critical to America's national security. In other words, you want to bring a lot of the manufacturing back. I think most Americans were a little surprised at how dependent we have become on China, and especially when it comes to medical gear, agents for medicines that we desperately thought we needed at the time, and we never got it.
Yeah, absolutely. Not only the supply chain stuff, you take something like the accident that happened from Heparin, where tens of Americans died because it was contaminated from China. That's one piece of the problem. Prepping for this kind of a emergency contingency and PPE and all that, that's another. But now that the global economic crisis has hit and companies are out there selling shares, selling ownership just to get the cash to survive, China is gobbling these up. They just bought a ton of planes from United and are leasing them back to United. They're buying companies that have technologies that our defense industry, that our national security depends on. They're buying them up, and they're going to keep us from getting that technology. Maybe it's something to power a tank turret or something like that a small company has that has to sell itself in order to just keep the company alive. China's gobbling them up. Even NATO said China is on a buying spree. We want Americans buying those companies that are in trouble, and that's what the SOS Act is for.
Well, I think if we don't get that done, we're going to come to regret it. You want to weigh in on that, Andy Biggs?
Yeah, I think Mark's right on the money on this because we've built China, and now they're opportunists, and they're looking at this as a way to irrigate even more power to them and more money to them, and we cannot afford to be more dependent on them on supply chain, whether it's defense supply chain, whether it's pharmaceutical supply chain. We have got to take control of this as a nation.
All right. I want to thank you both for being with us. Thank you, Congressman Mark Green, Tennessee, Congressman Andy Biggs of the great state of Arizona. Thank you both for being with us.